Hey, welcome again to The Journey. I'm Matt, one of the pastors here. Welcome to those joining us online as well. Glad you're with us today. And I've had a prayer of thanksgiving that I've been really focusing in on. I've been thanking God for however He worked in the mind of the man who created air conditioning. It's been a big prayer of thanksgiving to me this time. So I'm glad we're inside. I'm glad we're not doing church on the lawn today. It's a little crazy out there, but glad you're with us. And today we're talking about money matters, and not about like giving to church or anything like that. We're talking about like how can we find some financial freedom, some financial direction. And the Bible actually has a lot to say about that, because and we're talking about money matters because money matters in every aspect of our life. It affects us because money is a big stressor for people. So it affects us emotionally. Money affects us relationally. It can be one of the leading causes of divorce, money issues. It even affects us spiritually. So we're going to be talking about some money matters today. And I've noticed recently in conversations I've been having with people that the topic of money has come up multiple times. It might be a job situation that's causing some financial strain. It might be just that everything's more expensive, and just it seems to be that's a topic that has come up, and it seems to be more of an issue for people. And so I thought maybe this is a great time to talk about money. I know we've been talking a little bit about finances in our house. My daughter recently graduated, and she got a job, and so now we've been talking about, hey, here's some things you have to start paying for. And so it's shocking when you are in that stage of life and you hear how much like car insurance costs and things like that you have to be paying for. And so we're kind of been talking about finances at our house too. But I was thinking back to when I was that same age, man, things were a lot different back then, back in the good old days or whatever it might be. But I was thinking about that, like, man, we used to go to like Hot and Now and get like a 39-cent hamburger, right? Or like Taco Bell had like a 6-pack of tacos for $3. I remember that, and we used to get that all the time. And now it's like you go to McDonald's or something and it costs you like $20 for one person. It's like crazy. Or I was thinking about like gas. Like when I was in college, my wife and I got married. We're at the same age kind of where my daughter was. Like we were down in Georgia, and gas was 70 cents a gallon, and now it's like $3.70, right, or whatever it might be. It's just like, and it's so much different. And like we lived in, when we were that age, we lived in this townhouse apartment type thing, 2 bedrooms and 2 levels and bath and a half and stuff like that. And we paid $250 a month for rent. It might even been less than that. Which is like crazy to think of these days. And I think I was thinking back to like even my car. Like I had my very first car I got when I was 16. I had a Mustang. Sweet, right? It wasn't. It was like the bad years. It was an '84, the Capri style with like the hatchback. It was brown and rusted, and I bought it from my cousin for only $750. And it was a great car. I had it for like 5 years, and I sold it for $750 5 years later. And so it was a great car. And but like things are so different nowadays. But I do like to point out too, while things were a lot less expensive then, like I remember I was working when we were in college and we got married, I was working at some campus jobs, and we made minimum wage, and that was $4.25. So that's a little bit different, obviously there, but man, things are different, and especially when you think of like housing and stuff like that these days. It's just absurd how crazy it is. Like I mentioned, like when I was that age, $250 was our rent, and now you can't hardly get a 1-bedroom apartment for under $1,500. And it's just crazy how things have just seemed to get out of control. Everything seems to be more expensive right now, or even maybe you're dealing with maybe college debt and stuff like that. That can be piled on as another stressor in your life. There's just a lot of stress that can happen when it comes to finances. Money, we're talking about money matters because money matters. And like knowing all of this, knowing this is going to be one of the biggest stressors, I thought we'd look to the scriptures today, look to some insight that Jesus had, because Jesus actually talked a lot about money. And so we're going to be looking in the scriptures. There's lots of other things about money too. This might give us some insight. As always, I want to encourage you, if you don't have a Bible, to check out the YouVersion Bible app. We have a link to that right on our homepage of our website. And we're going to be looking at that. And this next week, we have a couple of different reading plans that go along with us too. So you might want to check that out throughout the week. But today we're looking at Luke chapter 12. So if you want to turn with me in your Bible or turn your Bible on or just follow along on the screen, that'll be fine, as well as we are going to be looking at some insight from Jesus on this money matters, because money definitely matters. And so here's what Jesus had to say. Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 13, he said this: Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me to judge or to be a judge or arbitrator between you?" I never know how to like read the tone of that. Is he like hello, man. Like, who anointed me to be the judge? Or is he saying, like, man, like who made me the judge of this situation? Like, why are you bringing me into your problems like that? I never know how to quite to read the tone of that one. But here again, we have to see this guy, and he wants Jesus to fix his finances. And here's what Jesus has to say. He says, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Did you hear that? Let's make note of that. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Like Jesus spoke those words some 2,000 plus years ago, and those words are still so relevant for today. That our life is not comprised of just having stuff. Sometimes we miss that whole point because there's everything in our culture telling us to have more, to make more money, to have more stuff. It's almost Amazon Prime Day. Maybe you already got your wish list all set. It's like a national holiday now. They're just spending money on random things you don't really need. And so there's all of this pressure in our culture that says, like, have more stuff. Make sure your house is Instagram worthy. Make sure your life is Instagram worthy, or whatever it might be. We're trying to keep up with the stigma. But Jesus says, life does not consist of an abundance of possessions. Just having more stuff does not make your life any better. He goes on to say this, and he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store up my surplus grains. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grains laid up for many years. Take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get all you've prepared for yourself? And this is how it will be for whoever stores up for themselves and is not rich towards God. Now, Jesus isn't saying, like, don't have a savings account or save up money or things like that. What he's saying is life isn't found in an abundance of possessions. That if we just think our life will be better if we just have all of this stuff and then my life will be easy, I'll be able to sit back because I have so much stuff, God says you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed because life isn't found in an abundance of stuff. He goes on to say this. Then Jesus said to his disciples, I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you eat, or about your body or what you wear. All those things that he's talking about is about things that were social status back then, kind of similar to still today. Like what you eat, what you look like, what you wear. He's like, don't make that your concern. Don't try to have an abundance of those things to try to impress other people or to think that those things will give you a better life. A few verses later, he continues with that thought. Don't set your heart on what you eat or drink. Don't worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the poor, provide purses for yourself that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief can come near and no moth can destroy. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus says there's something more to live for. Life isn't found in an abundance of stuff. Life is found when we actually live with open hands. And he says, and that happens because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You know, when it comes to money matters, it's really a matter of our hearts. And maybe the question we have to begin is like, where's our heart? Am I trying to keep up with everyone, to impress everyone? Am I thinking to myself, if I just have more stuff or the right stuff, or if I had that car or that house or that thing or that other thing or the Switch 2 or whatever it might be, that then my life will be better? Is that where our heart is? Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And so we need to examine our hearts. He tells another story in Luke chapter 16, just a couple chapters later. He says this, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. He says that you can't live with a kind of this divided heart. And he could have said a lot of other things. You can't serve both God and something else. But he said here, you can't serve both God and money, because this is such a big matter of our hearts and our souls and our direction and our focus. And Jesus realizes that. And so he says you can't serve both God and money. And there has to be this division of our heart. And so we have to make our hearts clear. We have to work on this heart issue. And it begins here by talking about, can you be trusted with what you have now? Again, we think if I just have more, then my life will be easier. But if we can't manage what we have now, what makes us think we'll be able to manage more? What I have found is that when people can't manage what they have now, when they get more, they just get into bigger problems, bigger troubles. The debt becomes bigger. The problems become bigger. And so we have to learn to manage what we have now. Jesus calls us, the Bible calls us, to be good stewards of what we have. And so we have this little thing that was out when we walked in. I don't know if you grabbed one. It's a financial growth plan. It's a way to maybe help us develop a plan to be good with what we have now, so that maybe we can be trusted with more in the future. And so you may want to grab one of those. I'm just going to touch base on a few of these things in here, because this will help us manage what we have now. One of the first things is about establishing an emergency fund. We don't want to end up in a spot where we're living paycheck to paycheck. And if you are there, the first step is to develop an emergency fund. And we've always said like around $1,000 would be a good emergency fund. But I don't even know if that's adequate these days, because everything is so expensive. But the issue is this, is that if you're living paycheck to paycheck, when an emergency comes, then you have to go into debt to cover that emergency. And this is the issue. The emergency are going to come. That's just part of life. We had this about a year ago where we had to fix one of our kids' cars. There was some brakes or something we were doing on it. And then, like right around that same time, everything in our house is falling apart because it's like 20 years old now. And then, so like the fridge had to be replaced. The washing machine broke. It was leaking all over the floor, so we had to replace those things. And then we had to replace our furnace. That all happened within a matter of like a few months. But, you know, that's just like how things work, isn't it? I mean, that's how it goes. And so we have to be prepared for those emergencies. We don't want to have to go into debt when those things happen. And so the first thing we need to do is establish an emergency fund. Do whatever you can to have something in the bank to cover when those emergencies come, so you don't have to go into more debt. The next thing is about using a budget. Now, no one likes to use a budget. No one likes that. But the budget speaks the truth, and it can be a very helpful tool. And while I don't want to do all that work to write all these things down, to record all these things, like I get that. It's a lot of work, but it's so helpful. Here's what it says in Proverbs chapter 10. It says this: lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. If you're like, I don't want to do a budget, well, you might just be stuck in poverty then, because this is what we see, this truth in the Bible. But if we're willing to be diligent, to put the legwork in, we can actually help us move forward in our finances. And a budget's a great way to do that. Use a budget. Now, a budget is a very simple thing. It's like you have this list of expenses, and you have to do all your expenses, not just the bills you pay, but all the times you go down to parties in the park this summer and what you spend down there, all the open houses you have to go to this month, and how much money you're spending on things like that. It's like everything you spend and keeping track of all this is expensive. That's a really long line. And then you go to the other side, and it's the income, and that's a really short line. There's like only one or two things there. But you want to make sure, obviously, that you have more income than expenses. And that's where the problem tends to come in with people. And so the budget helps us make decisions on how to either cut costs or maybe say, I need maybe a different job, or I need to do a little side hustle for a while, whatever it might be. It speaks truth into the situation, can give us a plan to have a way forward. It's a way to be diligent with what we have, so we can hopefully get out of poverty and out of some of our problems. And so we have some resources on our website in the resource section that might be helpful for that when it comes to budget. But there's a lot of good apps too, where you can just take pictures of receipts and things like that nowadays that can make it a lot easier to do a budget and to keep track of that. But a budget is helpful. It's a lot of work, but it speaks the truth, helps us make decisions. I can think back to, like, for us, I was thinking about decisions you have to make. You have to make decisions all the time. Can I sign up for this new streaming system? Or can I afford this car? Or what am I going to do about this situation? When you use a budget, it helps make those decisions. And part of that is learning about making good choices too. I think back to, again, when we first got married and out of college, we both had good jobs. We were spending way too much money going out to eat. And so we were like, okay, this is not fitting into our budget. We need to make better decisions. I can think of recently, I wanted to, we were in the market for a new vehicle. I had driven the same thing for like 12 years. I got passed on to the kids. And so I wanted to get a truck. And when you go buy a truck, man, that's expensive. It's like more than a house these days, you know? It's like trucks are insane. But I was looking for like the mid-size truck, which is now actually bigger than the big trucks used to be. I don't really understand that. But I was looking like the Frontier or the Colorado or the Tacoma, something like that size. And they're all still really expensive. And then the Maverick came out, and I was like, oh, maybe this is a good option for me. And back then, it was like $20,000 cheaper than those mid-sized trucks. So that's what I ended up getting, and I can tell you this. It's not the truck I wanted. It's really a car with a truck bed on it. It's a little baby truck, I call it. It's not as tall as what I'd like it. It's front-wheel drive, things like that. It's not what I wanted, but it was a better financial decision. It gets way better gas mileage, fits in my garage, and it was just way cheaper. And so this is thinking about your budget and your expenses helps you make those decisions. We were in the situation with looking for a new vehicle. We needed another vehicle. We have 4 cars now, and just thinking about all the expense that comes with 4 vehicles and paying insurance for teenage drivers and things like that. It's like we need to make a better cost-effective decision here, and so this is what you have to do. The budget helps you make those type of decisions. And then as you're working with a budget, it helps you to do the next thing, which is pay off debts and credit cards, or maybe college loans or things like that. Like college loans, you can just get in so much trouble with college loans. You can just start off your life with so much debt hanging over your head. Thinking through a budget and thinking about the future is important to think of. And paying off these debts. The average American has over $6,000 of credit card debt, and sometimes that's multiplied because they have 2 credit cards. And so just having all of this debt that we have to pay out every month. You get your paycheck, there's already taxes and Social Security and all these things taken out of it, and then when you have to pay off all of these other debts, it just puts you in this hole to begin every month when you get your paychecks. It talks about that in Proverbs chapter 22. It says, the rich rule over the poor, but the borrower is a slave to the lender. Do you feel like that? Do you feel that tension of like, yeah, I feel like I'm a slave because I have to pay off all these things. I've been working hard for this money, and it has to go to someone else. That's what debt leaves us with, those feelings. And so this is something we want to work to pay off. There's some great resources we have through Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace stuff. There's like a debt snowball that can help you do that. Again, it's on the resource page. There's links to that. But just thinking through, like, how can I pay these things off? If you use your budget, it can show you where you can make cuts, and then working hard to pay those things off, and that can really snowball your finances in the right direction. It's such an important thing. I think back to when we were paying off our college loans too. My wife ended up getting a master's degree, and so she went back to school for that, and so we could like defer our payments on our student loans because she was back in school. And so we did that, but instead of not paying them, we kept paying through that time and just making that sacrifice, say, like, we're not going to go on vacation, we're not going to do these other things, we're going to pay off this stuff, and just spun it so much further forward to pay off those debts so it wasn't. And then when you get those debts and they're not hanging over your head, it's like, wow, we can actually save money and do all these things. It's really exciting. And so just whatever we can do to pay off those debts. Again, there's other great resources that can help you online. And then the last thing is this, about having a savings plan and thinking about the future is so important. It's not just living for today in this moment. That's often when we get into bad decisions when it comes to our finances. We live in the moment. We're like, ooh, I want this right now. I want this in this moment, not thinking about the future, not having a plan for how we're going to spend our money and save our money, not thinking about what's ahead. And I've just seen many people who are thinking about retirement at the same time they're still living paycheck to paycheck, and we don't want to end up in those spots. That makes it so challenging and difficult. Having a savings plan. Proverbs talks to us, again, about thinking about an ant in this sense. It says this in Proverbs 6. It says, go to the little tiny ant, he says, and consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provision in the summer and gathers food in the harvest. It saves up knowing that winter is coming. And even an ant does that, so maybe we should consider that for ourselves. One of the best things that we did for my wife and I is that we established early on we call it a special account. Whenever we deposit our paychecks, we have a different account where a portion of that paycheck goes into this other special account. So what we did, this was our savings plan. That special account becomes our emergency fund, it becomes our vacation planning fund, it becomes our like Christmas or birthday fund and all that kind of stuff. It's just a special fund that we've trained ourselves not to look at that money, to live off of less so that we can save more. And it just taught us to, when we look at our savings account, to be like, okay, we don't even look at that amount of money. And that's been so useful for us, such a great plan for us, because it just creates this financial freedom and it teaches us to live off less. It might be a good idea for yourself to consider doing something like that, because it can train yourself to have a plan to save up and thinking about the future and making investments. The earlier you can, the better you can on that. But these are all, there's some other things on that sheet too. You might want to grab one of those when you go. These are all good ideas to kind of help our finances. These are some good ideas to maybe help us, as Jesus was talking about, to be faithful with what we have now. But all those things are great, but it still comes down to a matter of the heart. Money is a matter of the heart. And we can have those plans to do all these things and still find ourselves in a bad situation if our heart isn't right. Here's what it says in Ecclesiastes. It says this: whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with our income. See, if our heart's not in the right spot, if we're still living for an abundance of possessions, an abundance of stuff, if we just want to have more money and think that will solve all of our problems, we're never going to be satisfied. So here's the life hack, the trick to kind of move our finances forward when it comes to our hearts. 1 Timothy chapter 6, it says this: but godliness with contentment is of great gain. That's the secret. Godliness, to say, I'm going to have my heart focused on God, walking in his ways, and then having contentment alongside of that, that's when we find great gains in our life. To come to this point to say, I don't need the bigger truck. I don't need to have these things that are on sale just because it's Amazon Prime Day. I don't need to go on vacation over spring break just because everybody else is. Can we just be content with what we have? It continues in 1 Timothy chapter 6. It says, for we brought nothing into this world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, will we be content with that? Will we be content with what we have now? For those who want to be rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. And I have seen that happen too many times. That people just are living for an abundance of stuff, and their whole life revolves around getting more and making more money and having more stuff and spending it and trying to live this lavish life. And what that leads to is foolish and harmful desires, and it ruins their lives and their relationships. I've seen so many things, so many people walk through that in their life, ruin and destruction because of harmful desires and decisions. It goes on to say this: for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Not money itself, but it's the heart issue. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have even wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. I've seen that happen so many times too. That it's like, oh, I got to work more. I'm going to work on the weekends. I'm going to do all these things. And pretty soon they kind of fade away from their relationship with God. They end up making harmful decisions for themselves, end up in ruins, and they've walked away from their faith in the midst of all of that. So what should we do instead? It continues a few verses later. It says this: command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth. So that's the secret. Don't put your hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put your hope in God, who richly provides for us with everything for our enjoyment. Command those to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and willing to share. And in this way, they will lay up for themselves treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of a life that is truly life. A life worth living, here it says. A life that's truly life. A life worth living is not found in an abundance of possessions. It's not found in just having more. It's a hard issue. It's being in a place where we're not putting our hope in money or things, but saying, God, I trust you. My hope is in you. Godliness with contentment is of great gain. Remember, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And if you find yourself looking in a place where I need to have my finances revamped, a lot of times it has to begin with our hearts. Because where our heart is, there's our treasure. And we need to shift that towards godliness with contentment. I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes with me as we wrap this up. I don't know where you're at with all this. Maybe this is helpful. Maybe there's a few things I need to switch. Maybe you're just in a spot where like, God, I need you to work on my heart. Maybe you're in a spot where, God, I need to trust you. I need to maybe ask you to provide for me in a certain way. And as I trust you, I don't know where you're at. But in this moment, let's just respond. And God hears our prayers and he knows our hearts. Lord God, our lives can be so full of stress because of our finances. And I'm sure there's people here this morning, too, who are just feeling that. So I pray, God, that you will be our hope, even in the middle of that struggle. That you might work on our hearts, that we might shift where our treasure is. I pray that we will be able to look past all those signs out in this world that point us towards getting more stuff and having to have more stuff. And we just push past that and trust in you through all of that, God. Work on our hearts. God, teach us to be content with what we have. And for those that are just maybe in a struggle with a job situation or something like that, may you guide them and may you provide for them, may you direct them. For those who are maybe struggling with debt or the financial struggles, may you give them the courage and the strength to be diligent, to work hard at it, to make tough decisions. For all of us, God, may we look to live for something that's truly living beyond just having stuff. Follow you in your ways, to be generous with what you've given us. Work in our hearts, God, we pray in your name.